And we've seen that reshape the private sector drastically. How have you been tracking that? And how have you been able to measure the real impact that has had on the private sector confidence and real businesses here in Nigeria?
Yeah, it was exciting times. I came just before the reforms, and soon after these bold reforms were announced and put into effect, and they've had a positive impact in terms of the macroeconomics. You've had fiscal deficits being reduced from 5.5% about to 3% of GDP. Now you have growth rates in the economy approaching 3.5% in 2024 and growing with greater prospects. You have a reduction in inflation rates, but that came at a cost, and we recognize that. It was a painful period, but right now what we're seeing is that the fruits of that are coming to bear. We have increased capital flows to Nigeria from international investors, right, but also domestic investors. We're seeing a greater increase in job creation. So all of this is beginning to bear the fruit for the economy. But also, Nigeria has become a harbinger and a proof of concept for many countries, not just in Africa, but beyond. Because it's gone through these painful reforms and is seeing now the positive effects of that, it is giving impetus to others to follow suit. And I just would like to applaud the government here for doing that. We all know that for an economy to function, you require a public enabling environment, and then that will crowd in the private sector. Money flows where there is opportunity, right, and it flows where there is good policies that enable private sector continuity, and that's what we're seeing now in Nigeria.
Right, and I think it's something very important you highlighted there, because the focus became on the public, the real businesses, beyond just the macros, but coming down to actually impact the micros, the small businesses. How can we ensure that marriage between, yes, bold policies, inspiring policies across the region, but it's also impacting positively the private sector? How can we ensure that there's that marriage between public policy and the private sector, the real businesses, and what people go through on a day-to-day?
So as you pointed out, the majority of jobs are created in the private sector. It could be informal, and it could also be in the formal sector. So in Nigeria, it's about 90% of jobs, or even more than 90%, about 92% of jobs are created in the private sector, in medium and small sized enterprises, so MSMEs. This is a wonderful opportunity. Being in the informal sector doesn't have to be the end game. It can be the beginning of the way. So we in IFC and our partners are working with banks to provide more financing and access to finance, working with microfinance entities to be able to reach those MSMEs, working with what we call champions of industry in various areas to develop capacity for them to grow and access, so that they can move and transition from this informal to more formal. Because it's moving to the formal sector is not the objective. The objective in going to the formal sector, it's not the end game. It's just a pathway to being able to access more finance and access markets. So the more you can do that, then you can have more sustainability in your job creation. And that's really the North Star. North Star is job creation. As the president of the World Bank Group likes to put it, job equals dignity, and a good job is even better. And so that's exactly where we are trying to drive our programs, and we're seeing that this is actually something that's very central to the public and strategic objectives here in Nigeria.
Right. So, the dignity in labor, the quality of jobs, I think is something that, cannot be emphasized enough, considering 90% of, workers in the informal sector here in Nigeria. Not so, should I say, glamorous work, some consider here. Maybe we need to work on, the PR for that, is agriculture. But we know that in Nigeria, we have the largest arable land in Africa. 20 to 30% of GDP comes from agriculture, and also employs a significant, amount of the workforce, millions. So what are some of the strategies into, investing in that sector and seeing that sector scale from just, the smallholder farmers, but, leading in agriculture across the region as well?
Excellent question. So it's 90% of the private sector creates jobs, not just the informal sectors, MSMEs, formal and informal. But a lot of that, like you said, is in the agri sector. So yes, 23% contribution to GDP, and 35% of jobs are actually in the agriculture sector. So how is it that we can scale it up to achieve more job creation and job growth, but also food security, but also have the benefits of value chain development, so that you can retain value within the economy, and you're not just producing primary products or exporting primary products, but you're adding value in higher levels through agri-processing and agribusiness. So that's really the objective of another program that the World Bank Group is shepherding, called the AgriConnect program, where we want to work with smallholder farmers, as you put it, but to bring to them means to improve their productivity and yields, whether that is through seeds or fertilizer or irrigation processes. So to bring technology to the smallholder farmers, to the farm, so that you can have an improved value-creating process from the farm to the table, from the farm to the markets. Right? And this is where you can create sustainable jobs. At the end of the day, a job becomes a higher quality, valuable job when it is sustainable. Sustainable meaning it's earning profit, it's able to improve skill sets, it's able to have better improved inputs. That's where you have higher quality jobs.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, I'm rather curious, because there's a lot of investment, there are a lot of initiatives. How do you begin to measure the impact so that it's not like you're pouring water into a leaking basket? How do you begin to measure the impact and say, okay, this is working, let's pump more into that?
Good question. And at the end of the day, you're right. We have to measure what we do by the impact that it has, not by the millions of dollars that we're pouring in, but by the jobs that we're creating, by the number of households that have access to energy, by the number of children who are graduating, and by the number of people who, as I said, finding jobs. These are the measures of success. And when we see these metrics increasing, we're reaching more farmers, more, as I said, agriculture. That's impact. And that's when you're impacting lives and livelihoods. And that's how we measure our success. The amount of money that we are financing to the private sector or mobilizing through private sector are a means to that end. At the end of the day, it's all about impact. So whether it's Mission 300, as I was mentioning before, which is a program to bring energy to 300 million Africans, or whether it's the AgriConnect program, which is a mission to improve and reach 300 million farmers, that's how we're going to be measuring the success at the end of the day, and through that, achieving the quality jobs.
Quality jobs, very important. And, speaking of jobs, one sector that has attracted a lot of attention globally and also interest from the young people here in Nigeria is the creative economy, the creative sector, whether it's music, it's, the filmmaking and everything. It's getting a lot of attention. What potential do you see there, and how is the IFC approaching that part of the private sector?
So creative sectors, a creative industry is not an add-on. It's not an afterthought. It can be a critical element and sector in an economy. And Nigeria is case in point. Already we're seeing Nollywood is employing about 2 million people. 2 million people, that's equivalent to about 10 million households that you are 10 million, people that you are reaching through the creative industries. So it's really something that we are pushing the pedal on in IFC. We signed recently a contract to collaborate with Terra Culture, and we're looking at other entities to also do the same. We're looking at supporting sports arenas, and much more than that. I think we recently did about $50 million in a sports arena, and that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we would like to do in the creative industries, which is very broad. It's Nollywood, it's sports, it's music, and of course Nigeria being a leader in music across the continent and globally. So it's fashion. There is so much that can be done through the creative industries and creating jobs, and not just creating jobs, but also creating entrepreneurs, creating global leaders and global labels that are really going places.
I think it'll be interesting to track the outcomes of that. But it's been great being in conversation with you, Dahlia Khalifa. Director of Central Africa and Nigeria at the International Finance Corporation, the World Bank Group. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.